Hi there everybody, Sanna here again today. I would like to show you a couple of media and products you can use with Tattered Angel's Glimmer Mists. I've chosen to use the Icicle Blue tone on this video just because it's the darkest color of the Glimmer Mist sprays that I've been using throughout the video series. For this particular video I thought I'd show you some ways to do a resist technique in combination with the Glimmer Mist. So I've gathered a selection of products that I have at home, and I've written all the names of the products on the back of these ATC sized paper pieces, and I'm going to first apply the media on top of this cardstock, and then when it's dry I'm going to apply the Glimmer Mist and show you what kind of effects you can create with those. So let's start with Nuvo drops. So I'm basically just going to add a little bit Nuvo onto the piece of cardstock and create a very random pattern. And since I've pre-cut these in ATC size, I'm thinking I might be able to use these on some kind of project later so that these don't go totally to waste. So I basically just added a little bit of the Nuvo drop very randomly on the paper, and now I'm letting it to dry, and when it's all dry I can apply the Glimmer Mist. So my next product is Glimmer Glaze, and I've taken, this is already stamped by the way, which I don't mind because this is going to be a ATC base, so I can use it as it is. So I'm going to open the Glimmer Glaze. This one happens to be black. That's my favorite color of this in this series, product series. And I'm just going to add some droplets here. And this dries dimensional, so you get a 3D effect if you apply this product onto a background. So there are a few drops here and there. And we'll put this aside to dry. Show you a close-up of the product, how it gathers on top of the paper, and it dries as it is. It does not soak into the paper. And let's wipe the residue off. And the next product would be white gesso, and this is just a basic gesso I have at home, nothing special. And let's put some of the gesso here. So I'm using a paintbrush and adding just a little bit here and there on top of the paper and letting that dry. So I'm going to clean my paintbrush. And next we have Distress Crayon. I don't know if this works as a resist product or what kind of effects you can create with this, but it will be fun to test this out. Normally the wax crayons create a layer that resists the spray paint, but we will see how that reacts. I haven't tested that yet. And then we have the transparent texture paste, which I think I'm going to use a palette knife, just applying a little bit here and there to create a fun, interesting background for my future ATC. Just a few droplets here and there. Some parts have more in them and some have less, so we'll see how that reacts. And then we have the white texture paste, and these are totally no-name cheap products that I have at home to show you that it doesn't matter which type of transparent texture paste you use. Basically they work all the same for this resist technique. And then we have the white texture paste, and I'm doing the same, just applying a little bit here and there, trying to leave some areas untreated, and put that aside too. And then we have some crackle paste. This one is from Stamperia, which is I think an Italian company. And like it says, it crackles. And mine is a little bit stiff already because I haven't been using it that much, so always remember, use your product before it gets too old, because then you can just do nothing else with it but to throw it away. So I'm adding a little bit thicker layer on this paper to see the crackle effect later. And we'll just leave that to dry. And then I still have quite a few products, so let's move on. The next one is the glitter paste, and this is iridescent glitter paste from Viva Decor. There are a lot of different types out on the market from different manufacturers. This just happens to be the one that I have available here. And I'm just applying, again, some with the palette knife, just roughly applying it onto the paper. And it will take a little while for those to dry, and then I'll come back with the Glimmer Mist part. Next we have Versamark, which is a watermark stamp ink that you can also use for embossing techniques. I'm just going to clean this table a little bit. And I've chosen a snowflake stamp, rubber stamp, that I'm going to add some stamping with to the paper. And for this one, this particular one, I'm not going to add any embossing ink on top. I just want to see what happens when this dries, and if I get some type of resist effects only with the Versamark stamping and the Glimmer Mists. So we'll leave that to dry. And next I think I have the Versamark with embossing powder, yes. So for this one we will do the same, just stamp some images onto the paper, some snowflakes here and there, and then apply white embossing powder on top and heat that, and that will create a really nice resist effect on top of the paper. Now I need some type of, let's take this one, because I want to pour the residue back into the jar. So I'm just applying the embossing powder on top. And if there are areas that I don't want to have embossing powder on, I just can gently wipe them off with the paintbrush so that the powder, the loose powder, comes off from those areas, and then it's good for heating. But before we heat that, we are going to pour all the embossing powder back into the jar, because we only need just a little bit of that product. And then, where's my tweezer? I don't want to burn my fingers, and this one we need to heat, because the heat makes the powder react and stick to the paper. Just make sure you don't burn your fingers, because the heat tool gets really hot. And if you do it on a working surface, make sure it's not out of plastic, because it will bubble and deform itself. So you will ruin everything that is not that heat resistant with the heat gun. Also, the powder gets really hot, so watch out your fingers. Don't touch it immediately after heating. Let it cool down a little bit, and then it's good to go. So I think that's done. It turns a little bit shiny, the surface, when the powder, can you see that? So it's more shiny than it's before we heated it. So that tells you that the powder has melted and it's good to use. Okay, and next we have, let's see, we have Glimmer Glam, and I happen to have only the blue one here. So this is a Tattered Angels product that you can apply a little bit color and a little bit glimmer onto any type of project, and it's basically similar kind of to the glitter paste, except that it's not a paste, it's a paint. It's more fluid, but it also has these glitter particles in there, and if you shake them, they spread around the paint. And then you just can take like a feather brush, which I don't have here, so I'm using a regular one. And then you just, can you see that? So there's that beautiful glitter in the paint. So you just take it with the paintbrush and then you apply it onto the project. So you get a little bit glitter and you get a little hue of color. And this dries a little bit shiny. So you can create really beautiful details with this on any type of mixed media project, for example, or alter all kinds of home decor pieces with that paint. There are several colors, and you also have this color chart on top, so it tells you which color it will be when it's dry. And then again, let's clean the paintbrush, because otherwise it will be ruined. So for this purpose I'm just using the baby wipe for now. Okay, so let's put that aside. That will be really lovely. Then we have Goosebumps. And this is a product that creates a texture. It's a spray. It's like a texture paste, but it's again a fluid, so you can spray it on all kinds of surfaces, and the areas that are treated with this Goosebumps fluid resist the color. So you can go on and spray it, or you can go and add it with the spray pump part. So I'm just making random patterns here, and then you can do droplets, just like with the Glimmer glaze. So all these areas that have the bumps on them will resist the Glimmer Mists later. But this needs a drying time, so we will have to put that aside. But you can create really fun details with this product in combinations with the Glimmer Mist. And it also dries 3D, so dimensional, so you can create a little bit texture to any type of project with that. And let's clean the surface again. Next we have a Tattered Angels High Impact paint, and this is a white one. And I'm going to apply this with the paintbrush again. We only need just a little, so I'm using the cork for that purpose. There's enough paint in there. Okay. Let that dry. And again, on this product you also have the color chart on top to tell you which tone it will be when it dries. And next we have the Nouveau Mousse and the Inca Gold. So I thought I'd try both products. This is a kind of shimmery wax based product that you can add as a paste, or you can rub it on projects to add patina to them. And I've got the pink one here, that's from Viva Decor. This is called Inca Gold, and this is a Nouveau Mousse. This is from Tonic Studios, and I'm going to apply these products on top of the ATC card, and I'm using a palette knife to pick up the color, because if I use my finger, the fingers have bacteria on them, and if you wipe this wax with your fingers, then you will end up adding bacteria to the surface, and it will start to develop mold at some point. So always take it with a spatula or something else and add it to your project, and then when it's there you can wipe it, or just apply it to your finger from here and then wipe it onto the surface. And it dries fairly quickly, so when it's dry it's good to go. And let's add some here, so we have everything on the paper, and just wipe it there. And then let's take the Nouveau Mousse, which is a little bit softer than the Ink Gold. Maybe that's a little bit older already. And I'm doing the same. I'm just using the palette knife first and then wiping it onto the surface and letting that dry on that spot there. So I have two different colors going on there. We'll see how that reacts with the Glimmer Mists. And then make sure you close the lids really well so that the product doesn't dry out, because that happens fairly quickly with this type of product. And then again, let's do some cleaning, because I don't want these to be damaged in any way. And then I've got the crayon here. So this is a regular wax crayon that I got from my son's school supplies, and I couldn't find the white one, so I'm using the blue one. And I'm just adding some patterns here, just something very random. We'll see how that goes when I apply some Glimmer Mist on top of that. And then finally I have one gelato here, and I'm going to do the same. Just going to open it and wipe some gelato on top of that paper. Some areas a little bit more and some a little bit less. Maybe wipe it a little bit to see what happens. Let's add a circle there. Just some random things. Okay, so we'll see how these work with the Glimmer Mist spray. And let me see if I can wipe that a little bit. No, let's wipe the residue off there. Okay, so I think we can start with at least some of these products, because they have had a little bit drying time while we have been applying the other colors. So I'm just going to take paper towel to protect the surface a little bit, and take the blue Icicle Blue Glimmer Mist and start applying. Okay, let's do the embossed ones first, because I think this will work already. So I'm just sideways shaking the bottle a little bit, like we've learned. And then I'm just adding a few spritzes of Glimmer Mist on top. And what I can do now is I can go over the surface and I can wipe it. I can first dry it up with the heat gun, but I don't want to. I'm just going to add a little hue of color here and then wipe off the residue. And you can see that beautiful snowflake pattern with the embossing powder going on there on the background. We'll just leave that to air dry. Next we have the embossing powder on its own without any the Versamark stamping on its own without any extra embossing powders or product on top. And we'll see how that reacts with the Glimmer Mist. I'll just leave it a little bit to see what happens. I can already see the snowflake patterns coming out of the background. And let's wipe over that surface. And the funny thing that happens is that the embossed areas are stronger in color than the background, so you can create a reverse kind of pattern onto this paper with just using the Versamark ink with a rubber stamp and then applying the Glimmer Mist. That looks really fun. And next, let's see if that's already dry. Which one should we take? Let's take the gesso. That's dry already. And again here I'm adding the spray ink, and then I'm just wiping off, and what happens is that you get a lighter area. So this gessoed area takes some color, but it's still lighter than the other areas. So if I apply a little bit more spray ink and leave that to air dry, it will show better. Or we just give it a little bit heat with the heat gun so that the Glimmer Mist soaks into the paper. So what we have here is a misted background and then a different toned area with the gesso on top. So there's definitely a difference in that surface, and if I take a baby wipe and wipe some of the color of the gessoed area, it gets lighter. So you can gently go over that area with a damp cloth or some kind of like a baby wipe or piece of fabric that you misted, and when you wipe the residue ink off, it does not stick to the gessoed surface. So you have this resist going on there. Next, let's see if the glitter paste, yes, that's dry. So let's do the same here. Maybe I can take another color just for fun. So this is the aquamarine, and it's a slightly lighter tone, but it still should show a certain resist effect. Okay, and let's dry that a little bit. I want the color to stick to the paper. And here you have a really nice resist effect going on because of the type of product that this is, because it's a gel mixed with glitter, and you have this transparent surface. When it dries, it doesn't take any color. It totally resists the color. So that creates a really fun background. And you have the glimmer and shine still going on there. And then when it's all dry, you can again go over the surface with a damp piece of fabric or a baby wipe to wipe off the residue, because it does not stick to that area at all. And then you have this resist background. Totally easy to create. And then the next we have the distress crayon. I'm really excited to see what happens with this one, because I don't know if that works at all. And I'm going to take the pink poodle for this one, just for fun, so that we can get different colors going on here. So I think I'll need to leave that to air dry, otherwise the wax will react with the heat again to create a different type of it will end up reacting differently if you heat it, I think. So let's leave that, let's put that aside and leave that to dry, and then when it's dry I'm going to try and wipe off some of the Glimmer Mist from on top of that and see what happens. And next we have the white texture paste. So this again should work really nicely. And I'm taking the aquamarine again here. And then let's add some heat. Lift that a little bit from the surface so that we don't ruin my working surface, because that's a silicone working surface. Don't want to ruin that. And you can already see that the white texture paste resists the spraying really well, so you can also use that to create this type of effects on your projects. Okay, and just gently removing some of the Glimmer Mist from some areas that are treat it with the texture paste so the original white color will show better. And it looks really interesting. That will be a nice starting point for some kind of ADC. And the difference to glitter paste is there is a big difference because the media is different in how it dries and how it reacts. So the white texture paste creates a more smooth result. And then we have the crackle paste, which has dried out and crackled really nicely. So we're going to add, let's do blue here to add much contrast. And the fun thing is that the Glimmer Mist will soak into all those cracks on that area we applied crackle paste to, and it will create nice contrasts later. So we'll leave that to dry, put that aside and let it dry on its own, and then treat it again. And let's see what happened with our Distress Crayon. So we definitely have a background going on there, not that strong, but there is still some resist going on. So if you add a little stronger amount, a little thicker amount of that Distress Crayon on one spot, it resists the color better, as it looks like. And if you wipe over the surface, it doesn't do much, so we'll just leave it as it is. But there is still some kind of resist going on this piece too. And then next we have this was the Nouveau drops. This is without the glitter. So these are the dimensional drops. You could use liquid pearls. You could use glimmer, glitter. How is it called? Stickles. Stickles or glitter glue. That would work too. So let's do this with the aquamarine. And it should resist really well, which it does. It just needs to dry out a little bit. So I'm just making sure I've got all areas covered, and I'll leave that to dry on its own again and then go over it when it's a little bit drier. Next we have the Glimmer Glaze from Tattered Angels. This is the black one. And I think I'm going to take a lighter color for this one, because maybe since this is a translucent paint, spray ink, maybe we can still have some of that color coming through from the background. That would be nice. Or maybe it blends with this one. So all the areas that we treated with the black Glimmer Glaze will resist this spray ink tone. That works really nicely. And then I'm just going to use my finger to apply the color everywhere. And I can even heat that, because if I just give it a short heat, the Glimmer Glaze will stay as it is. If you heat it too long, it will start to bubble a little bit. So just slight heat, and I have a really interesting background to start with. And this is a dimensional surface here. Looks a little bit like nail polish when it dries. It's a little bit shiny and dimensional. This is one of my favorite products. And then we have a few still. We have the Inga Gold and the Nouveau Mousse, and this should be dry already. Yes, they are dry. So let's do the green one here. And since it is a wax product, it should react this in a similar way like the wax crayons do. So we'll see how that goes. Leave that to dry too. And this one, let's leave it still a little bit. Then we have the transparent texture paste. That should be no problem at all. Let's do some pink here. And you get a really good resist here. I'm just using my finger to apply the color throughout the surface, and you can already see that there will be a huge resist effect on this piece. We can leave that to dry too. Then we have the fun product with the, can you see that shine and glimmer going on there? So this was the Glimmer Glam, the light blue one that I had at home. And I'm going to use the green to create a similar tone. That will be fun, I think. And there is the shine. You can immediately see the glimmer and glitter showing up on the wet background. I don't know if you can see that on the video, but on the final picture I will make sure that there's some to be seen. And this too creates an immediate resist effect. All those areas where I applied the paint onto doesn't take any of the glimmer mist. So there's a total resist going on there. Next we have the gelato, and let's add again green. I've been using a lot of blue on my last videos, so let's do some green here. And I'm just applying it everywhere and leaving it to dry. And as it looks like the gelato has dried and it resists really well the glimmer mist. It creates a really nice effect. And then we have the regular crayon, children's crayon. Let's see what that does, and let's do some blue with that one. Tone in tone should be interesting. And it resists it really well. Can you see that? Also, if you have candles, you can also do the same trick with a candle. Just don't heat it up, because the heat will, since it's wax, wax will react to heat, and then you will get different results. If you want a pure resist, then just leave it to air dry as it is. Then we have two more pieces. This one was the Goosebumps, which dries out dimensional, and I'm going to add some pink on that one. And there's a lot of fun resist going on there. I don't need to dry that with the heat gun at all. And then finally we have the high impact white paint. We'll see how that goes. Let's do the aquamarine on this one. You just need to make sure that the first layer dries out really well before you apply the glimmer mists, then you will get really nice results in the end. If you're impatient and you add it onto the wet surface, it will react totally different. So you will need to have some patience with doing a resist technique. Okay, so I have all these different little pieces going on here, and the crackle paste has almost dried out. I'm just going to gently wipe off some of the glimmer mist from on top of that crackle paste layer. You can also use crackle paint, by the way. It will do the same trick. And paint in general. So if you add acrylic paint, you can also create a nice resist effect. And this creates really fun details, because then you can wipe some of the glimmer mist off the surface, and then you have these contrasts going on. Or you can leave it as it is. And then you will have the color, when you wipe it off, you will have some color in the cracks all over the place, so they will be darker than the original surface, which can also be really interesting, depending on what you want to create. And what else did we have? That's still a little bit wet, but that doesn't need any treatment at all. Maybe we can do some here. Doesn't need it at all, actually. And then we have the Inca Gold. Let's see if we can wipe some of that glimmer mist off the surface here, so that the pink color shows better. Yes, we can. And the same thing with the mousse, with the Nuvo mousse. Let's see what happens here. So you can actually wipe a little bit off, but also some of the mousse comes up with, at least with the damp baby wipe, that happens. So might be better to leave it to dry on its own. Okay, so that was the resist technique, and at the end of the video I will add pictures of the dry finished cardstock pieces for you to see how they turned out when they were completely dry. I hope you have enjoyed this part of the Tattered Angels Glimmer Mist video series, and I'll be back soon with another video. Thanks for watching. Bye!